Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and today we are going to look at the Heavies H1H. This is the Axel Grell designed Bluetooth active noise canceling headphone from Heavies. This was started as a Kickstarter project, and that's how I got in on this. I saw ads on Facebook, I think it was, so yeah, all right, Facebook ads work sometimes, unfortunately. Anyway, got in on the Kickstarter on this. It was shipped to me about 3 or 4 months ago now. I've been using it in certain on-the-go applications since, and it's time to do a review about it. So again, I picked this up with my own money. Neither Heavies nor Axel Grell has any knowledge that this review is coming, so all thoughts that you are about to hear are mine and mine alone. So, with that, we will get into shameless self-promotion, and then we will talk more about the Heavies H1H.
Hi, I'm Wave Theory's human companion, and he wants you to know that your support of this YouTube channel helps keep the reviews coming. If you enjoy Wave Theory's honest, thorough style, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the links in the description below to sign up for the Patreon or send him a tip through PayPal. All right, enjoy the musings.
Pricing on the H1H is a little bit difficult to nail down to an exact dollar amount because here in mid-November of 2023, when I sit down to film this video, the Heavies website has this listed on sale at $279 US, marked down from $329 US. The Kickstarter price was lower than that. I don't remember exactly what I paid for that. I would have to go back and look. But if you're going to buy this now, at least as of the filming of this video, it's about $280 US. So call this roughly a $300 US Bluetooth active noise canceling headphone, which puts it right around the price of like the Sony XMs of the world, and you know, not far from like some of the Bose Quiet Comfort models and all of that. So throughout the course of this video, I will be referencing those other headphones a fair amount because I still own and have around a Sony WH-XM1000 Mark III, okay, which is a bit long in the tooth now, but it had been the headphone that I was using before the Heavies came along and all that. So the Heavies kind of took over the role that this headphone was playing in my collection here in some specific instances, and so this is going to be the measuring stick for a few of the things that I talk about here in this video. So a comparison with the XM3 here is going to be interwoven throughout this review. All right. Now, the H1H is pretty interesting for a variety of reasons. For one, it was designed by Axel Grell. Who is that? Well, he used to work for Sennheiser. He has designed a number of legendary headphones, including the Sennheiser HD600 series, so the HD600, the HD650, as well as the Sennheiser HD800 series. So he has other projects out there in the world as well, but as far as listing this guy's key accomplishments and his qualifications, I think that's a good enough list for right now. The other thing that caught my eye about this initially was they keep marketing it as a headphone for heavy metal lovers. I am a fan of heavy metal, hard rock, classic rock, those kinds of music genres. So you put Axel Grell and heavy metal in there and you have my attention. Okay, and so one of the questions that we're going to be talking about here throughout this review is like, does it deliver on that promise? Is this the Bluetooth active noise canceling headphone around $300 for metal fans? Like, does it have the heavy metal? Does it win the heavy metal? Like M-E-T-T-L-E, metal, and then metal. You know, I'm going to workshop that and put it into the title of this video probably. So let's find out. Okay, on that. The other interesting aspect of it, though, then comes into the approach and the build, because this is a multi-driver headphone. Okay, typically with over-the-ear headphones like this, you tend not to see multiple drivers in them very often. There are a few exceptions out there that some are going to point to, but by and large, there's usually a single full-range driver in these headphones. Why? Well, when you have a driver this close to the ear, phasing issues of having multiple drivers becomes an issue. Like, you want all of your sound waves to reach the eardrum at essentially the same time, or as close to the same time as possible. And if you put more drivers in there, you can very quickly and easily start to change the distances over which sound waves travel from driver to ear. And if they aren't all aligned well, then you start to lose like some accuracy in your imaging and your separation, and you start to get some phase cancellations going on in there, and just like some peakiness that can happen, all that. You get wave interference, right? Wave superposition and all of that going on, which is often less than ideal for sound quality. With speakers, okay, in a room, multi-driver approaches work much better because they're farther away from the ear generally, and so the effects of the distance, the different distance the drivers are from the ear, is much less, or can be mitigated with like curving the baffle or just any other number of approaches there. But with drivers this close to the ear, it's very difficult. So it's a very unique and interesting approach that Heavies took here, because these are 8 driver units, and I think it's 4 per side on that. So in a little bit, I'm going to have a quasi overhead view where I show you the build, and I will show you where a couple of the drivers are in there, because one of the goals here in their driver array and where they are lined up is to, like, first of all, make a bigger sound stage than what a lot of the Bluetooth headphones out there can do these days. And then also kind of make it sound like the sound is coming out from in front of you rather than being in the presentation. Because it is more natural and less fatiguing for our human listening experience to feel like the sounds are coming from out in front of us rather than like in our heads, right? So did they pull that off and all of that, we will talk about in the sound section. And again, I will give you a close-up view of some of the build and the features of this here in just a moment. Okay, there is active noise canceling on this, which Heavies refers to as Hellblocker. And I'll go ahead and drop right here that I was not super impressed with the active noise canceling on this headphone. They do a good job of not having the ANC wreck the sound quality. Like, there are some active noise canceling headphones out there that sound much, much better when the active noise canceling is not enabled, and then they suffer in performance when it is. But this one, like, to their credit, I did not really notice much of a hit at all to music sound quality when I activated the Hellblocker or the ANC on this. But the active noise canceling just was not spectacular in terms of how well it blocked out extra sounds. Like, I did not have the opportunity to use this on an airplane. I just didn't do any flying since I've had it. But I would use it in situations like, you know, pushing a lawnmower, running a vacuum cleaner, sitting in the room with my dishwasher running, you know, things like that, to just get an idea of what it does for those kinds of noises. And it does reduce the amount of those sounds that make it in a little bit. There's a few dB of attenuation there for those like kind of constant louder background noise kinds of things. But it's not going to catch the Sonys or the Bose of the world in terms of how good the active noise canceling is. So it does something, but it's not great. I would not call it one of the key features of this headphone. Like, you're not buying this if you need the top of the line noise cancellation at the price, is more like the point that I'm making there. Okay, however, I will say that the passive sound isolation on this, just the way it blocks noise, even without the ANC, just on your head, it fits and it seals in just such a way that it does a fairly good job of attenuating external and ambient noise already. So no, it's still not going to be as much of an environment blocker as the Sony lines or the Bose that are out there, but it does a decent job actively, and then the ANC, or excuse me, it does a decent job passively, and then the ANC does help a little bit, okay? But again, not class leading for the price there. Okay. With that, we will go ahead and turn our attention to the build quality. So we'll do a quasi overhead view and I'll show you close up what this thing looks like and what some of the control features are and show you its case and how it fits in the case and that sort of thing. So let's cut to that. Like just about all portable headphones these days, around this price anyway, we get a carrying case, which is fairly rugged. Okay, it's got some strength to it and all of that. And then, of course, we have a zipper on it. Okay, do that. Open it up, and here we have folded up headphones. Kind of a nice velvet kind of finish on the inside here. All right, then the folded up headphones themselves. Okay, so they do fold up like that. I have small-ish hands, but there it is next to my hand to kind of give you an idea of the size of it. Okay, so then unfold them like so. Couple aspects of the build that I want to talk about. Okay, so let's look at the controls and all of that. So we have USB charging port here. We have 3.5 millimeter TRS input here if you want to use them passively. I should flip these around because this one is actually the right side. Okay. So then over here we have the pairing button, right? So flip this around if you want to pair this to a headphone, okay, or anything like that, or your phone, all of that. That helps you with the connectivity. Power on, off, and then also like the HB, which stands for the Hellblocker. That's their version of active noise canceling. So this toggle switch has 3 positions here to access all of that. Here we have some transport controls, okay, and then also we have a rotating, okay, this is also a button right here for play, pause, I believe, and then track forward, back. And then this also rotates for volume control, okay, on that. Now this is connected to the software volume control on your phone, so unfortunately, you turn this, you'll see your phone's volume actually decrease. I would have liked to have seen, particularly in like an audiophile grade product, that it has its own independent volume control. So you can set your phone volume and then adjust from here, because that would ultimately help with absolute sound quality and all of that, but it doesn't quite have that. All right. These back panels right here have these like wings on them like this. So these can pop off if you want and then be replaced with like a more artisan or a custom cap and all of that. There are options discussed on their website for. So if you want to customize your headphone, okay, you can, that's one way in which you can do it. All right, looking on the inside here. Here are 2 of the multi-drivers in the array here. And these are the ones that sit in front of the ear. And then like they really do help like kind of project sound out in front. So I will talk about this more when we get to the sound section of the review. Okay, you've got them on either side there, right? But yeah, that's 2 of the drivers there, and that's done pretty well. Like this is one of the more effective multi-driver arrays in a full-size headphone I have heard. Fair amount of room, okay, for ears in here. So even if you have somewhat large ears, there's both like good ear area and then also good depth, particularly in the back there, for people with large-ish ears. All right. I don't know if it will show up well here on the camera. You can kind of see where these have gotten scratched and scuffed a little bit because, and I will show you this when I come back on camera and how they fit on my head, because they do stick out a ways from the head a bit, and so they do just, you bump them into things. If you're wearing them while you're doing yard work or housework or things like that, which you might want to, because that's those are good times to use wireless and, you know, active noise canceling headphones. Like they bump into things because they stick off of the head a little bit more than others. So more comments about that coming up here in just a moment with me back on camera. Another thing that I will point out when we come back on camera here is that the headband here does not have a ton of padding in it. Okay, there is a little bit. It's not 0, but you do not push in very far before you feel the solid and hard feeling of the headband inside, you know, back behind there. Here are my Sony XM3s up a little bit more closely, and you can just contrast that with the thickness of the padding on the headband there. Okay, and that's a pretty good transition into talking about comfort, which I will do back on camera. So let's do that. All right, back on camera here, or face on camera, to talk about fit and comfort, because there is a couple of comments that I have to make about that, and this is probably my single biggest complaint about this headphone. I really love the Sonics, which we'll get to. It sounds great, but the way it fits, and there's some fit and comfort issues here. Like I just showed you in the build video and compared to the Sony, like how the padding here on the headband is not particularly thick or cushy, all right? And that does make a difference, because like putting this on, again, it's a little bit heavier than the Sony and all of that. So to me, there is like the most contact the headband makes with my head is right here on top. So given the weight and just the fact that for me, the headband rests like right here on top of the crown of my head, like I do get a hot spot right up here, okay, after, it doesn't take all that long. It's not terrible, I can wear it for a while, but when it starts to get uncomfortable, that's where it happens first, okay, is right up there at the top of the head. Now, I can loosen that a little bit by extending the head size thing there, and then it like just barely touches the top of my head, and it stays in place fairly well. It's overall less comfortable for me because now there's like more pressure here under my ears and like here on my jaw to hold it in place, but it's still not held in place as well. Like it slides around on my head more when I extend that out. So I have to make choices about, do I want it to slosh around on my head more and have pressure on my jaw, or do I want to run the risk of hitting this hot spot in here rather quickly? The other thing that I'm going to talk about is like just the overall profile and like how much it sticks off of the head here. Like compare it real quick with the Sony, just in terms of how much space it does not take up. Like these hug the head a lot more closely, and like the headband, there's more points of contact on my head here. So the combination of these being lighter, them having a little bit more cushion here on the headband, and then more points of contact on my head, they are just more comfortable for longer periods of time, and I don't get a hot spot on there as well. Now these will slide around on my head a little bit too, so that they're a little bit better about this in the heavies because they're not as heavy, okay, but it still happens. The other thing I want to draw your attention to here is look at the profile of like the yoking onto the cup here. Like there's not a whole lot of room right in this area for things to get caught, right? Compare that here with the heavies. Okay, there's more room in here, right? Why does this matter? So these things, like with these kind of this connection here, whatever that's called, sticks out a little bit, and then there's more space in here. I was bumping these things onto like walls and all of that. Like if I'm doing housework and all of that, and I reach into the closet to get a broom out or something, I'm bumping this into the door jamb more often than I'm bumping this one into it, okay? Also, when I'm out mowing the lawn or something like that, and I'm working around the edges of like a hedge, or I have some lower trees that have some lower branches that I've got to mow around and all of that, the increased profile here would like get caught in here and push these off my head more often than what happens with the Sonys. So just from a build and fit and comfort like standpoint, there are a few disadvantages to this design. So I realize that the 8-driver approach and all of that means that these probably are necessarily a little bit on the bigger side, but that does have some consequences when it comes to actually wearing these around and using them in on-the-go applications. I did try to use these at the gym, and that did not last very long, because when I went back to lay down on a bench press or something like that, these would slide right off the back of my head, okay, which is not unique. The Sonys do that too, so for me, they really were not great in that application either. Okay, so I think that about does it for like the fit and the comfort and all of that, and it's just to like wrap that up as saying like, these sound great, but I think there are a few kinks to work out yet in the overall design in terms of the fit and the comfort for long-term use and that sort of thing. So But then again, comfort is just very dependent person to person. You may tolerate that pressure on the head a little bit more, or the pressure on the jaw, depending on how you have it set up. Okay, or you just may have a slightly different head shape that fits this design a little bit better. But for me, those were the issues, and that is like the fit and the comfort are my biggest complaints about this headphone. Just about everything else is really good. Okay, so then let's talk about those everything else's. All right, as we think about sound then, that's where this does get pretty exciting, because this does sound very good for what it is and for the price. All right, so test gear that I used on this real quick, like the two sources that I used were either my Android-based Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus, which is doing the filming right now, where it would have been connected via the LDAC codec. And then I also have an iPad 12th generation in right now that has a fairly recent iOS version. I don't remember the exact version. And so when this connected to that, it would have been via the Apple's SBC Bluetooth codec on there. In either case, this spent some time using music played through Spotify using their 320 kilobit per second Vorbis OGG format, or I would play lossless music using Rune Arc, okay, as a source there, and playing either local FLAC files or streaming lossless FLAC files from Qobuz, things like that. Okay, still connected via Bluetooth though. All right. And what did I learn from that? The sound of these is very good, right? Axel Grell has delivered an excellent sounding Bluetooth active noise canceling headphone here. One that I think does give a pretty decent audiophile experience for $300 US in there. All right, so why do I say that? We'll start with the tuning and like the tonality of it. Like, it is more neutrally tuned than like the Sonys of the world, which are very bass heavy. They push the mid-range forward too to like enhance vocal clarity, and then they roll off the top end a fair amount to ostensibly like reduce long-term listening fatigue and all of that. These have some mainstream tuning elements to them, but they are still much more neutrally tuned than these Sonys, for example. So there still is a little bit of a sub-bass shelf, all that, so you get some very good sub-bass extension, and then a little bit of elevated sub-bass presence. They also have a decent amount of impact and slam to them in the low end there. Probably more impact and slam than I have heard from other active or Bluetooth ANC cans, which I think is part of that heavy metal, tuning. You want that hit, that impact, the dynamic nature of it to come through, and it more or less does. Okay, the mid-range in here is pretty well tonally balanced. If you're familiar with my channel at all, like, I do not like forward shouty mids at all, and mainstream tunings often have aspects of this. This was a lot smoother. It was not like perfect in that regard, but this did not go shouty or honky through the mids to me nearly as often as the Sonys and other mainstream tuned pieces that I have heard have done. So pretty good relationship between fundamental frequencies and harmonics and all of that through the mids. Gives a reasonably natural tonality through the mids here. And that also extends up in through the treble. The treble here has some air to it. There might be a slight roll off to it to reduce fatigue and all of that, but it's not nearly as rolled off to the point where it sounds like dark, almost like some of the Sonys can, as an example. So there's still a fair amount of sparkle to it, but the treble, also has a remarkable smoothness and natural presentation to it. So the treble ends up being very non-fatiguing over longer listening sessions, not because there's less of it, but just because what's there is pretty well balanced and fairly natural sounding. So it's not sharp or shrill with a lot of sibilance or anything like that. So I think the tuning is really good here. The tuning, you could argue, is geared towards like a heavy metal audience, where it is just, again, that sub-bass emphasis. So there's a little bit of like thickness and fullness in the low end going on here, which I think also lends itself well to like hip hop and EDM and those sorts of genres as well. But it's not overdone because this sounds good with other music genres too, at least in terms of its tuning. So jazz and classical and all of that also sound pretty good on these headphones to boot. Okay. The two things that really impressed me, though, from a technical standpoint about the sound of this thing is the detail retrieval or the resolution, and then the fact that there is something resembling a soundstage for a Bluetooth ANC here at this price range. So let's unpack each of those here. So the detail and the resolution and all of that, like it's amazing how much bass texturing there is here. So like this resolves the finger actions of like fingers on guitar or bass guitar strings in particular, for example. So with a bass guitar, to sound natural, you get that transient sound of the pluck on the string, and this resolves that quite well, and that's where a lot of headphones in this price range and of this type fall down. They don't resolve that initial pluck sound very well, which aids in the thing actually sounding like a bass guitar, right? And then you get texture. You can hear those subtle little wobbles and vibrations and all of that of the string vibrating in here through this headphone, more so than you can from these and others in the price range and of a Bluetooth nature. Okay, but it doesn't stop there. Like ghost notes and room reverbs and all of that are also excellent. So is this the most resolution and texturing and such like that you're going to get in a $300 headphone? No, there are wired models that will do more of it, but this has really closed the gap between what a lot of active noise cancelers and Bluetooth headphones have done to what a good $300 wired headphone like a Hi-Fi Sundara or something like that that's even open back are able to deliver. Like this takes a big step towards those wired headphones in that technical category there. All right. The soundstage, it really does do a good job of making it sound like the sound is out in front of you. There is a less in the head kind of feel and presentation to the staging and the sense of space here. And then the imaging and the separation, especially laterally. There's not a ton of depth. That's not a shock at this price point, even if this were a wired headphone. But laterally, the imaging and the separation are very on point. Okay, they are, there's a good sense of here's where sound is and here's where it isn't. It's not the most three-dimensional and truly holographic thing that I've ever heard. And yes, there are wired headphones like the Sundara, for example, that do it better. But for an active noise-canceling Bluetooth, wireless headphone, does a really good job of that, and I was quite impressed. So the goal here of using the drivers, the multiple drivers, putting some out front to kind of create that presented to you rather than like in your head sound, like they really made some big strides towards actually making that happen, and that's quite impressive. All right, a real quick note then on like, does it matter whether you used LDAC via Android or the SBC versus Apple iOS? No, I really didn't hear a huge difference in quality of sound between using those two codecs. Okay, so it just either or should work fine for you here if that was of concern. All right, some other comparisons then, like I've kind of woven comparisons here throughout the review here with the Sony. The Sony, anyway, I think there's more physical comfort here. These are physically lighter. They do a better job with the active noise cancellation of blocking out the external sounds, okay, and all of that, but like these are not as naturally or as accurately tuned as the heavies. They have basically nothing resembling soundstage. It's just all in your head and all of that. And so for me, these get a little fatiguing after a while just because they both sound and feel very closed in time. Where these almost never got sonically fatiguing to me, though I did have issues with the physical comfort that I did not have with the Sonys. All right. So then let's kind of wrap this up and I'll give you my takeaways here on the Heavy's H1H. We are almost there. Huge improvement over other Bluetooth active noise cancelers that are wireless and all of that with the sound here. I have virtually nothing to complain about with the sound because just like the strides made here for Bluetooth, wireless, all of that in terms of like detail retrieval and having staging and a more accurate tuning and tonality than a lot of the competition. Excellent, okay? The control scheme on this is a little bit clumsy, so I think there is some room for improvement there. And then to me, the comfort is like the biggest drawback here. Not to the point where I'm gonna sell these and never use them. I will continue to use them because they are comfortable enough for me to use for, say, 45 minutes to an hour while I'm doing housework and all of that, and then just take a break from them. Okay, they are fine for that, but if you need them for extended listening sessions, for travel and all of that, that at least for me would be a problem comfort-wise at that point. So I think if there's ever a revision 2, they need to decrease the profile here a little bit so they don't stick out off of the head as far, and thus they don't bang into things and catch on things as often. They either need to make them lighter or increase the amount of padding right here, okay, on the top of the head, or on the headband. And then of course they would have to probably remodel their carrying case a little bit to accommodate to the extra thickness here on top of the headband. But can I overall recommend a Heavy's H1H to audiophiles and particularly heavy metal fans? Yes, I can, because heavy metal does sound really good through here. Other genres of music also sound pretty good, but they are a very fun, engaging, and importantly, non-fatiguing listening experience for heavy metal. So does it win the metal for a $300 Bluetooth active noise canceling headphone? Yes, I think it does. Okay, so Wave Theory seal of approval on that. All right, so this has been my review of the Heavy's H1H. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like this video, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and check out my PayPal and my Patreon, and generally do those things that you do to support YouTube channels. And as always, enjoy the music.